culture has long been a staple of the West Coast, but one circuit has built its legend over the years to become one of the most famous along the California coast. Prepare to tackle Laguna Seca as we get ready for the PCA Sim Racing Series 14 Sport Class. You'll see it all live here on RaceSpotTV. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is Ewan O'Leary. Behind the scenes is our director, Ramiro Cisneros. Well, we're thrilled to have Princess Cruises as the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 14, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 17 elegant ships, sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. We are into the second week, Ewan, of WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Very much a classic, not just in California, but the world over.
Yeah, absolutely. And it continues our trip through different circuits that are so different from each other in so many ways, starting from Spa in Europe, a three-legged American trip coming to an end here tonight in the sport class before we go back to Europe again for a couple of other sort of different types of circuit at Aragon and Zolder. Aragon especially one that not many people will know, but this will be a very well-known circuit from Laguna Seca, and it comes on the back of 2 weeks ago, a bit of hope being offered to everybody else. I think Will Wolf dominated the first two rounds at Spa and Watkins Glen, but a stumble at Indianapolis, not quite taken advantage of by Josh Jefferson, actually, as much as you did expect, although he did get his third podium in 3 races. There was a different winner for the first time, and as I say, maybe the first signs of hope for everybody else that they can get a win this season.
Exactly. That has certainly tightened things up in the championship. If we take a look over on that front, about 60 points between P1 and P2. As you mentioned, Josh Jefferson not able to take maximum points, and that would have put him 50 points closer if he had managed to take the win. So that's how crucial that may wind up being towards later in the season. It's still such a tight fight between himself, Casey McDonald, and Lee Binkley as well. 30 points between second, third, and fourth at this stage, with a tie for fifth and sixth. And then you see we have a very nice fight between 7th, 8th, and 9th, with only 20 points between Maine, Hales, and Calbeck down there. So there's your championship situation. We are in the midst of qualifying at this moment, and William Wolf is not our pole sitter, but it is extremely close.
Yeah, and such a contrast to practice, by the way. I was just looking at the final minutes there, and Will Wolf was absolutely miles in front of the rest of the field. 7/10 of a second I had it as towards the end of practice. Now, I'm not sure whether he's not out there anymore, and they're done for the session. Pretty much everybody is, in fact. Only Bruce Robinson hasn't set any times, and he's the last driver out there. So Jefferson looks like he has taken pole here. Remarkable circumstances. If he can hold on to this, then it would be absolutely massive. But as you say, big missed opportunity a couple of weeks ago, you'd say, although it was a third podium in the first 3 rounds. The fact that Wolf had such a bad round, though, Indianapolis, by finishing in 10th position, not that bad really, but bad by his standards. Any of the top 4 could walk away at the end of today with the championship lead, so it's really been opened up by the most recent race.
Yeah, it does put Wolf in the position where he can't really afford another drop round, because this latest one will count as it. I know we're watching Bruce Robinson. I fear he has only taken off from the pit lane with about a minute and some change to go, so he certainly won't have the time to get around to complete a lap. As I see, his one attempt so far has been deleted, so he'll be our only driver that will not be able to set a time. They'll at least get a little bit more practice before we switch over here in about 30 seconds to our warm-up session. We'll see if Casey McDonald can maybe try and get in there and take the fight. Lee Binkley, where is he? He's all the way down in 9th. So if he hopes to repeat the heroics of his win back in Indy, he's going to have to really fight his way forward. As you can see, another lap that did not count here for Bruce in that number 386 car. So at this point, he is just cycling around to get a little bit more practice in.
Yeah, and why not as well? Before the race, of course, we will have another warm-up session to get used to having other cars out there once again at Laguna Seca. But It's a circuit that certainly does need practicing. Very, very difficult over the course of the 11 turns around here. 11 turns feels like it's underselling it slightly, but there's absolutely no room for error in this scan of the Laguna Seca circuit. I think this is actually a better one now than the racetrack we've got in the real world. It's a bit more punishing. The corners are all the same as they are in real life, but the runoff is not. These days you do get that little bit of tarmac to save you, but here you certainly don't. And I think that is a good thing, actually, for the race, as Jepson has managed to, I think, speed in the pit lane or something during warm-up.
Yeah, so that won't affect him too badly. Just interrupt this warm-up. I'm very curious as to how our pole sitter has managed to best William Wolf, who's looked extremely fast so far this season, as he beat him by just about 1/100th of a second to that quickest lap time here. We'll get that pole lap here in just a second. Like you said, an extremely technical track, despite what sounds like relatively few corners around here compared to most modern circuits. And we'll now get that view from Jeppesen. Why don't you talk us around a hot lap here at Laguna Seca?
Well, over the line first of all, and over the crest immediately, a staple of this circuit, the elevation change that you can see, sticking it to the left-hand side here, but not down the pit exit line, for trying to break in a straight line for the hairpin first braking zone of the circuit. It's double apex, but just make it into one turn, and then get yourself back over to the left again for this double right-hander coming up. Just effectively missing these red sausage curves, which are quite good markers actually for your apex, if you like. Just seeing again here, has actually missed it by a little bit further of a way than you needed to there. Don't run wide though through the dust on the outside either. That will get you an off track. Use the curb on the right hand side as well. That's fine to brake on. Again, nice little marker there in the red to just aim at, although just miss. Bit of sun in your eyes on the way towards the really difficult right-hander here at turn 6. Can't see the apex really at all, and the sun in your eyes at this time of day as well, making it very difficult indeed. Try and get the line as good as possible, as straight as possible really, through the corkscrew. That's what you're looking for, the shortest distance possible. Nailing your braking point to grab that apex, and now through the final couple of corners. So very narrow for the third last corner, I've got to say. It's not a terrible line, but normally you want a wider arc there. Again, aiming for the red sausage curb on the right hand side, same again. And then the final corner, well, you're looking for a late apex really, although Jepson going for an early one. I guess it's certainly because he's got the run only up towards the line and not all the way to the hairpin. Having said that, it's not the shortest run to the start-finish line here. So on a couple of occasions there, I would have said diving for the apex a little bit earlier than what you'd expect or hope to see if you were coaching someone around here. But those are clearly lines that work for him, and lines that have got him to pole anyway.
Yeah, that is a little bit surprising. I wonder if some of that is down to the setup, as this Series 14 is one of the first in a bit that we've seen this sport class go into that open setup format. So could potentially maybe be paying dividends, as he likes to drive it maybe just a little bit of a different way from everybody else. So last little bits of the practice laps here during our warm-up, and it's going to be Wolf versus Jeppesen once again, but this time Jeppesen able to have the advantage coming down into the first couple corners, as long as he gets a good start. Let's go through that starting grid. There you go, Jeppesen on the pole with Wolf next to him. Casey McDonald in P3 is followed by Nick Francis in 4th. Jeremy Main P5, as Brian Stern will start from the 6th position. From there, Jeff Williams will be P7 with John Kalbeck in the 8th spot. Lee Binkley, like I said, all the way down in 9th at the beginning of this race. Top 10 rounded up by Sheldon Zaharachuk. Then you've got Kevin Haman in 11th and Christopher Costas starting in the 12th position. P13 goes to Andrew Elsom. They'll have Paul Cavanaugh to his outside. Jim Walsh starts in 15th, followed by Andrew Long in the 16th position. Alan Hales, he'll start P17. He's got Mike Sachs joining him there on row number 9, with row 10 going to Marco Souza in 19th and Randy Rurvold in 20th. From there, it's Ward Preston in 21st position. 22nd will go to Kent Locklear. Then you've got Peter Yerxa in 23rd and Daniel Corbett in 24th spot. Last few sees Jeffrey Gardner 25th, Patrizio Torrigiani in 26th, Ron Evan in 27th, and Bruce Robinson, failing to set a time, gets gridded up in 28th spot for today's race, just as we get the clock ticking down to 0. I think the other thing that we haven't touched on here, Ewan, is this is a track where passing is not known as very easy.
Yeah, very true. If you don't qualify well, you generally don't get to race too well around here. Having said that, last week in the Pro Class especially, we did see a couple of exceptions to that and a couple of good runs through the field, but certainly not the rule. And so that session we've just seen there is going to be very, very key as far as the race outcome goes. But do expect a couple to work their way through the field. I mean, it seems that every week Prodigio Torrigiani qualifies a little bit worse than generally ends up finishing. So watch out for him from 26th place. I'd say Marcus Souza down in 19th is quite a long way back as well for his standard. Mike Sachs as well is 18th, as we just saw. There's a couple of drivers back there who've got a chance to come through, but you're right, you're unlikely to get through the whole field here. And with Jefferson and Wolf so close in qualifying, it's likely they'll be nose to tail, although maybe not side by side, for most of this hour-long race.
Indeed. And let's not forget, there is a scheduled pit stop as they do not have enough fuel to make it to the end. And that could wind up being a big factor between those two in that fight for the victory if they do remain close all throughout. They're out of the final corner. Jefferson has control of the field as he waits. And there's the green flag. Oh, but he does not go. Wolf is already ahead of him, and it actually checks up a few cars behind him. Oh. And Wolf actually has a black flag for that. He is passed before the start-finish line. He will lead into turn number 2, the first braking zone, but he is not going to be leading for very long.
Yes. And there's a big smash up before the hairpin even. A big smash up down towards the back. And there's a driver backwards before they've even really reached turning point for the Andretti hairpin. That is unusual, but not as unusual as what's just happened to Will Wolf out front. He's in front of Joshua Jefferson, but very soon he will be behind a lot of the field because it looks like he's jumped the start. As you say, he reacted to the green flag, but there's so many confusing rules on the start of the race that it's honestly hard to keep up what is to be done and what isn't to be done on the roadside versus oval side, in leagues versus officials. It all seems to have a different rule. And Wolf has just on instinct gone at the green, as I would say he's probably right to do, but he, as you say, was leading at the start finish line, and generally the rules are the race leader has to cross the start finish line at the start of lap 1 first. That's the whole point of being on pole, and Jefferson didn't do that.
Wow. So Jefferson should inherit it, and yes, it looks like Wolf is already serving that penalty. This is going to move Casey McDonald up into second, and they've got Nick Francis up into P3. So here's Daniel Corbett, and whoa, unfortunately, Torrigiani a bit of a bowling ball down into that corner.
Yeah, Torrigiani looked out of control. Souza was going pretty slowly, and he got spun all the way around. So Souza and Corbett were just trying to go really slowly to avoid, but actually it's one of those cases where actually going a little bit quicker and with a little bit more conviction in towards Andretti hairpin would have helped, because they were going so slowly that Torrigiani actually got tripped up by that, and if they'd have been going a sort of a reduced but more normal speed, then they would have been fine.
I have to admit, the wide angle made it seem a lot less crazy than it did from initially the start, watching from above. The cars maybe just kind of getting tangled up with one another, not really any big smashes in there to cause too much damage. William Wolf is back out. He is 43 seconds behind the lead. As fast as he is, I do not think that is surmountable.
But do we think he can get to the top 10 again? That is the key for me, because that would mean that that's what he's going to get effectively no matter what here. So to obviously explain the drop weeks, last time out 2 weeks ago he finished 10th. That's his worst result of the season so far, and that effectively means that if he finishes lower than 10th, he will get the points equivalent to finishing in 10th, even if he doesn't. If that makes sense. So he needs to get to that top 10 to sort of save that safety net, as it were, and if he can advance inside the top 10, get further up the field in that top 10, he can gain points on what his minimum will be. But as I said earlier, the maximum loss is 140 points, and when you've got a lead less than half of that, your championship lead is in serious trouble.
For sure. He's got about 20 seconds to catch the next car, so that's something else to watch out for. If he catches the back of that field, I almost wonder if we'll expect to see William to pit early and get himself out of having to pass so many of them. Jeff Williams, though, in a very side-by-side battle coming up through turn 5. Doesn't look like he's going to come out ahead on that one as Hammond is able to sneak through before they get to 6.
It's an unusual place to do it, actually. You see a few moves through turn 5, actually, a couple of weeks ago as well. It's about where you can get them done, really, here. There's no glaring opportunities. Turn 2 is the biggest half chance, but no glaring chances. You've got to take the chances when they arrive, and the man does look a bit quicker than Jeff Williams at the moment, and Jeremy May is putting on some serious pressure. Now he finally goes down the inside at the final corner for 3rd.
That's up 2 spots now for the 555 car. Looks look easy coming down through the final hairpin. Now he sets his sights on Casey McDonald, about 1.5 seconds up the road, but we're only 5 minutes into this race. There is still lots of time to go for these drivers. Let's see what kind of pace the 764 has now that he's been freed up.
Yeah, exactly. Can we just get anywhere near to Jefferson? Can Maine get anywhere near to McDonald here? So have a look at the setup for Maine in 3rd place now, and initially as well it does look like he's got the measure of Nick Francis, but spreading out very, very quickly here. These guys, all of them actually seem a lot quicker than the guys just in behind them. You rarely see these bigger gaps so early on.
Yeah, especially in PCA, which is so closely matched 9 times out of 10. This is going to be a little bit unusual out there. So we watch with Nick Francis, who we saw just overtaken a lap ago. He follows down through the corkscrew. He's got Cal back behind him, but he's got about 2.5 seconds of buffer at this stage, which should feel relatively comfy. It does look like he is dropping off of Maine a couple tenths here and there.
Yeah, exactly. Just doesn't look like he's quite got the speed at this stage, but see, as you said earlier, there's a pit stop and a lot of racing to come yet, so he'll hang about and see if he can regain that podium place as Maine himself tries to catch up to McDonald further out front. This is a group really being created by Brian Stern, and maybe the first signs of a real train starting to form. There are some gaps, though, that are more than a second, so we can't all put it on Stern at the moment. There is, though, a much bigger group from about Binkley on backwards of about 6 or 7 drivers in that midfield. Sort of towards the bottom of the tower, you can see that they are all nose to tail, but finding those difficulties of overtaking, as we were already talking about.
Not very many good places, so if you're a good defender, you could find yourself holding back quite a few cars. Salmon already having left behind Williams. Looking at Costas there. This is for 7th place. It's Williams in the yellow machine just behind. That we're now tracking, but a big moment just in front of them. And I think Hammond has just found himself off the course. And thankfully did not hit anything, which is rare coming through 6 when you lose control.
Yeah, it is a little bit. There's a bit of space before you get to the wall, but you are going quite fast. As a look down the inside from Zaharachuk, who tried to regain the place as well, but couldn't quite do it. He did quite well with car control there, actually. It was snapping left and right, and he did a good job of keeping it out the wall. I think he can take credit for that, for not ending up in the wall, because he had that car going left and right, but he was able to control it and stop it from going into the wall, as Zaharachuk is attacked now into the final corner himself. At 415th place.
And that was Mike Sachs that just managed to get by, but I'm not sure that he's really got it, because they're still side by side there in the background. Meanwhile, it looks like Hammond will not make up a position down into Andretti. And yeah, Sachs going as deep as he can. Unfortunately, was too deep. And there goes Zaharachuk on back by for that 15th position. They're going to trade for the 3rd corner in a row. And somehow Mike Sachs is back up to 15th again.
Yeah, I mean, I expected him to move forward. I must be honest, 3 places already in the first 8 minutes of this race, although the manner of these overtakes can often surprise us. Zaharachuk, unfortunately, is down 6 so far after qualifying inside the top 10, so there are the 2 sides of the coin, really, in the opening 10 minutes of a race like this. can either move forward or move backwards, and there doesn't seem to be many who do in between of staying exactly where they are. In fact, only 4 drivers of the 28 have stayed exactly where they qualified, which is quite a high number actually compared to what we see normally. Always shakes it up in the PCA compared to where they all started this race, only 10 minutes in.
Just a little bit in front of those two we were watching. This is Binkley versus Long. Lee has actually lost one position from where he started, so he's down to 10th. Remove that 0. That's where he finished 2 weeks ago, and he might lose another spot as Andrew Long breaks extremely deep into the Andretti hairpin, but not able to make it through, and somebody spins behind him.
Andrew Elson's dropping down the field. I'm going to presume that it is him who spun around as well. Mike Sachs was side by side again there with Saharachuk going past him, so they were very briefly through wide through the Andretti hairpin, but only because of that spin to the outside, which is very easy to do in these cars. As Andrew Long looks to the inside of Binkley, couldn't quite do it to turn 5 there.
A little bit antsy at this stage, staying very, very close, and something's happened to Bruce Robinson. So this is down into the final corner, and he's just simply slowing and almost looking like he's letting, I think that was William Wolf through, so I wonder if he just realized that was not his fight to be had. But thankfully still running. Long is up 5 positions. Not many drivers can claim that so far. I do see Jeff Gardner is the hardest charger at 8 currently, so not impossible to do better than that, but still 5 spots in about 10 minutes is pretty good.
Oh, that's going to be close. Oh, wow. Andrew Long got really late on the brakes there at the final corner. You could see it immediately. He only ducked out very, very late, but in the end he pulled it up in time from Binkley, and is actually going to have to pass as a result, although I think Andrew Long is a bit quicker anyway. But just to go back to Will Wolf, I mean, that is a good show of speed, isn't it? Fastest lap so far is a 24.8. That is the fastest in this race by 0.3 of a second. He's on an absolute charge, and don't be surprised to see him maybe even in the top 10 by the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. It looks like he is quite quick, but Jeremy Main seems to have lost a spot just now. And I think there may have been a mistake involved in this one.
Let's see it. As he was, oh wow, slides and very nearly spins. He locks it down to stop himself from spinning, and then has this awkward rejoin. Oh, whoa, where's he going? Goes straight across the racing line. Not sure why he did that part of it, but John Calbeck got through there. I think Francis had already done so, and so Main loses his top 3.
So back to Jeppesen, a second, and a third. When you drop weak as a 3rd place, you're having a pretty good season. But again, he's up against William Wolf, and this is another opportunity handed to him. He's been leading since the start of this race, just about a quarter of the way into it at this point, and he's gapped himself by about 5.5 seconds over Casey McDonald. So far, it is looking like smooth sailing. Yes,
it definitely is, but that is not something to be said out loud, not by him anyway, because that's when accidents happen for sure. We know, though, he's a very consistent driver, and he's taken to this sport class absolutely brilliantly. Oh, unlike Jeff Williams to that hairpin, he very nearly got into Lee Binkley in the back, and I feel like Williams might have had an issue before that, because I don't remember him being that far down, but he's certainly outside the top 10 now after going straight on at turn 2.
And he has dragged a bunch of gravel and dirt back onto the exit of that hairpin. That's going to make corner exits there a little bit tricky. We'll see what happens this next time by when some of the fast drivers start to head through there. So also had an issue for John Calbeck in the 84. This is down through turn 4. Gets maybe a little bit wide, but that's all it took. And he's going to lose one of his spots.
Yeah, so his very newly gained 4th place is very newly lost as well, as Jeremy Main looks to regain that podium again, and it looks like he has the pace to do it. We saw it when he was on the back of Nick Francis earlier. Don't forget, he made a legitimate pass earlier on to get to 3rd. That's how he was behind McDonald at the time of that half spin we saw from him. He does look to have the speed here for 3rd place, and so looking to try and win that back again before half distance, or at the very least before the pit stop phase would be a good thing. As Williams getting it wrong there. It's just such a difficult braking zone, isn't it? As you're coming over the top of the hill there, you're going through turn 1, which is there's just the bend in the road, through the left-hander there, and as soon as you're through that, you're effectively on the brakes, and if you're just slightly offline, you're slightly unsettled, you won't have the braking performance in these cars. Going a bit at a high speed for the brakes they have, and you will be going straight on in that case.
And let's not forget, that's a pretty big downhill section there too, so it's difficult to get the car woed up when gravity continues to pull you downwards into that hairpin. As we watch Main, gap between himself and Francis about 1.3 seconds at this stage. Their lap times looking, looking like Main is actually quite a bit quicker by almost 0.7 of a second.
It's one of those circuits, isn't it, that, you know, despite its lack of length, it's so difficult in terms of its corners and whatever, that you can gain these periods of time in just one lap. I mean, last time around, Jefferson did a 25.3. John Cowbick in fifth, I know he was overtaken, he did a 27.4. These are big gaps for a short circuit, so it's one of those tracks so difficult. You can always mark a track's difficulty by the distances you see between drivers on one particular lap especially, and that certainly applies to this one. Again, to put William Wolf into perspective, 25.5 last time round. That was faster than everybody up until Jefferson on that last lap, so expect to see him come through the field. Ironically, it's a difficult circuit to overtake, but actually, because it's so difficult to actually drive on your own as well, it's not a terrible circuit to go to the back for.
Yeah, if other people keep making mistakes, that opens things up. He's up to 22nd at this stage. I actually don't know how many cars he has overtaken on track and how many have had mistakes and errors in front of him and kind of gone off, but it looks like he's been making good thus far. Even still, I think we should be pretty much into the pit window. We'll see when he elects to try and stop and maybe get himself out of some of those passes as we check in on Paul Cavanaugh, sitting in 8th spot. He's actually on a bit of a defense mode. That's Andrew Long in behind him. You can see how much steering input is needed down through the course.
If you've got better car knowledge from me, but what's gone on to his Porsche in the background? Who's taken bits off it?
Oh yeah, I'm not sure. Clearly he's doing some work on it. We'll have to, well, if we get a chance to talk to him, we'll have to ask.
I hope so. I hope he doesn't just backed it into his own garage. Because that's the other possibility at first, isn't it? Goodness me. And there's a tail light on the floor. Dear, something's happening there. Anyway, this is the move. Oh, careful, Andrew Long there on the inside. Again, such a hard braking zone. As you say, downhill, you're turning, and it's the sharpest corner on the circuit. Bar the final one. And Andrew Long does get that move down the inside, but they both went wide there, both chasing each other very wide. And Paul Cavanagh's now got a black flag to boot.
Cause of the incident with the 517, that was on lap 8. That's Jeff Williams. And I'm not sure if we've seen that incident. Interesting. So that's going to send him into pit lane. A bit of a shame, as it has been a decent race for Cavanaugh, up 5 positions even after losing that spot to Andrew Long, who is now up 8 spots after starting 16th. 21's on a tear. Here it is.
Yeah, this was Michael Surza being taken off for the second time in the first 15 minutes of this race. He won't be having a good time tonight. He's down pit lane, by the way, in live pictures. He had a bit of a slide through the third last corner here. He was trying his best to stay out of trouble, actually, but he's just trying to come to pit lane there, isn't he? And Surza doesn't realise, but you've got to be so careful when you're doing that at this circuit, and you can't cross the track, as it were, like that. It's like doing a rejoin almost, isn't it? When you're trying to come to pit lane like that, you can't just cross the track when there's somebody coming, but also you can't just come to a stop on the circuit. You've got to think about it earlier than that. You can't end up on the inside of the penultimate corner if you intend to come to pit lane, because that's you're not going to make it in otherwise if there's someone on your left-hand side.
Yeah, exactly. And apologies, I had confused Williams with Cavanaugh there. I thought that was the replay of what had got the penalty for the 22. Marco Souza, though, is going to get a penalty because of that incident that we did see the replay on. As we're back to Nick Francis. So as we expected, Jeremy Main has run this down relatively quickly. We always say it's one thing to catch, it's another to pass. Let's see if he can pull the same trick he did earlier on.
Well, you'd imagine he won't find this too difficult. It's his consistency and the mistakes on his own that have been more the concern so far tonight. He's been struggling to make moves in the first 20 minutes, and that's a good run through the penultimate turn. He did it into the final corner last time, if I remember correctly. He brakes quite late this time, but he gets it pulled up in time, and, well, just about, and only because Francis facilitated that slightly. And Jeremy May moves up to third place. That was a little bit later on the brakes that time, but he gets away with it, and clearly has the speed to be in third.
Absolutely. So we've got a driver that's clearly got the speed, but maybe just a little bit mistake prone in the process. But up at the front, no mistakes yet from Josh Jeppesen or Casey McDonald. Both have been plugging away up at P1 and P2. Now with Jeremy Main completing that podium at the 40-minute mark, a third of the way through this race. That gives us a great opportunity to mention our sponsor, Princess Cruises. In fact, they're the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 14, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 17 elegant ships, sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA Concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. So, don't think we've had anybody with a standard pit stop yet. I do see a number of cars that have stopped in pit lane. I believe that's to repair the car a little bit, as we've had a number of incidents up to this stage. We check back in with Lee Binkley, and that is not for position in front of him. That is a lapped car. So Kevin Hammond is going to be watching this closely, hoping maybe this provides him a chance.
That's Jeff Williams, by the way, is just at the end of a second lap out of the pit lane after his incident. Spent over a minute down on pit lane a couple of moments ago, but now needs to look in his mirrors, and is maybe going to be spending the rest of this race looking in his mirrors at what's coming up behind him as he gets a black flag now, I believe, for that incident we just saw in replay, which is going to only further his trouble tonight. It is going to put him almost 2 laps down, unfortunately, such as the shortness of this circuit. Now, hopefully that's him done for pit stops now, but nevertheless, that'll be a lot of letting people past.
Absolutely, and there you can see, allows both of these battling cars through. Binkley chops down to the apex as quickly as he can. Oh, and William Wolf, wow, with a huge moment out of, and a bigger one, unfortunately, that was not able to catch. The car looking just a bit out of sorts, an unusual mistake from Wolf.
I think he's almost over pushing now. You know, that he's had that trouble early on in the race, realises the situation that he only finished 10th at Indianapolis and thinks, well, I've got to get further up the field here. If I don't get a top 10, then I could be losing even more serious points than at the moment 140, which it would be for Joshua Jefferson gaining over him. And that is making him overdrive a little bit as things stand. Now, he's only 23 seconds off of the top 10, and Kevin Hammond, who currently sits in that position, as Jeffrey Gardner goes very deep here into turn 2. Won't be the last driver to do that tonight. So I do think he will get, again, to the top 10 a little bit later and reduce the damage. But I also think Jefferson's going to be championship leader by the end of the day, to be honest, the way this is going. And Wolf realises the real sort of imperative situation he's in right now, that he has to gain some places.
I concur. And as we check in with Elsom, that's Peter Yerxa fighting with him for 15th position. Wolf is not terribly far back from them, maybe a couple seconds at this stage, up to 19th spot. And if they start fighting, that'll only help draw him in closer. But it looks like Elsom is just a bit too far away for Peter right now, so I'm not sure that he's going to be able to catch up to him. Although I think we had a change between Zaharachuk and Kavanaugh just in front of them as we're checking in on them. As Zaharachuk is going to try and fight back, and thankfully does not try to go too wide into turn 6, although Kavanaugh had a bit of a scary run off into the gravel there for a moment.
Not the corners to go side by side through turn 6. It's very, very fast indeed, and quite hard on your own as Jim Walsh goes for a spin now through the corkscrew. One of those corners that me and Harry last week were saying it's not actually that hard in these in these cars, and then loads of people spun through there. I think that's the first time that somebody spun through there tonight. Jim Walsh, he drops down below where he qualified and down to 17th, and indeed there is Wolf, I think.
Yep, so that puts Wolf up to P18 now. He's already made up a position in this one lap we've been following him. Let's see what happened to Jim. And coming down into the entry of the corner, looked a little hot. The rear starts to rotate, and the pendulum effect of Porsche shows its ugly head once again. It couldn't quite keep it from spinning.
Yeah, that was definitely one of those sort of corkscrew moments, if you like, and again, surprised that we've not seen more of those in the first 25 minutes of this race, as Andrew Long gets a good run out of turn 6 to have a go into the corkscrew on Christopher Costis. It's a decent braking zone, and if it was a more inviting entry, then there'd be more moves at the corkscrew, but sadly there isn't, and Costis can easily defend, but Long will have a much better go through the final sector, which is better for overtaking, and there he goes at the penultimate corner, down the inside, and he should have that place.
He does. That's P7 for Andrew Long now. 9 positions gained by that 21 car, and just continuing to gobble them up. It's 1.5 seconds now to Brian Stern. His quickest lap at 25.8 should put him ahead of Stern eventually, but then beyond that, Kalbick and Francis do look like they have comparable pace to Andrew. So we'll see if this is as high as it goes for this impressive run up through the field here from 16th position on the grid. But we're getting close to the halfway mark soon.
Yep, and don't expect to see all the pit stops, by the way, on halfway or anywhere near it. We saw a couple of drivers who had saved a bit go deep into the last 10 minutes of the race, just taking on a very little amount of fuel towards the finish. If you do get, I mean, the pro race, to be fair, was more about people being stuck in trains, I suppose, which is what you expect from the pro class at Laguna Seca, but this race has been a little bit less about that, so maybe a little bit less, therefore, opportunities in fuel saving, but even so, it's not a particularly heavy fuel circuit, as it were, fuel burn circuit, so expect to see a few people going deep here into the race, and mainly worrying about the track position and the traffic you're going to end up in rather than the position you're in. That is super key around here, but with such a short circuit and 28 drivers still running, or at least 27 still running, it's quite hard to do all that.
Kavanaugh just behind Mike Sachs, battle for 11th. Zaharachuk not too far behind as well. It's going to have to be decisive, and that's pretty decisive, but too much. And Kavanaugh is going to take a trip off to the kitty litter.
Was all the wrong line there and way too late, so goes out wide, bobbles his way back onto the circuit again, and I think recognises immediately. Oh, there's the face of a bit of regret as well, a bit of an oops in towards the final corner. Of course, good ambition to try and get the place, but far too late on the brakes there.
That allows Mike Sachs to run away with that P11. Sheldon Zaharachuk maybe now can see if he can give a go at that, because yeah, there he is right there in that kind of highlighter yellow-green car just behind Mike Sachs, looking pretty quick here. Last lap for Sheldon, a 27.2. Sachs at a 27.8. It is looking good for the 630 car right now.
Yeah, we've seen time and again that Zaharachuk gaining these places that, of course, he had in qualifying by qualifying inside the top 10. He's not been able to replicate since with the early part of this race. As he comes up towards the corkscrew now, he's not going to have a chance on this occasion. Mike Sachs, another driver moving forward, so interesting to see when these two have sort of a similar strategy and a similar style meet, which they have done for 11th position, with no real signs of any further places gaining into the top 10 at this point for them either.
Also, just out of curiosity, I took a look at Main and McDonald's lap times. Main looks to be about a 1/10 of a second quicker each lap than McDonald. Now, he's 5 seconds behind, so I'm not sure it'll get to him, but we'll keep an eye on that, because that could be a fun one later on in the race if he keeps kind of chipping away at that. It's not going to happen into the Andretti hairpin, although maybe out of it here, as Sheldon was much tighter at the apexes through there. Gains a little bit of time, while Robinson loses time through that double apexer.
No, as you say, Main is going to need 50 laps at that pace to get through, and we're not even going to have 50 laps in the race. Never mind left in the race. So
True.
he will need to pick up the pace. But I do think he can do it. I think a tenth a lap is maybe at the lower end of what he can do, based on what we saw earlier on from Casey McDonald. So or versus Casey McDonald, when you compare the two lap times, I think he can get a little bit. Look at 31 minutes to go here. A sort of underestimate, 20 laps to go, let's say. There's probably going to be one or two more than that, but 20. You need about 4/10 a lap. No, is that right? I don't know. Something like that. Anyway, you need to be gaining. It's quite a lot when you start to look at it. Gianni here is looking to.
He's letting traffic through. Yeah.
He's just letting some traffic through. And again, lap cars will have to do this eternally, especially if they're multiple laps down here in this race.
It's a pretty short lap around here, and with 28 cars starting, yeah, it's going to get a little bit congested as the leaders continue to catch. We might have some standard stops going. Andrew Elsom is in the pit lane. I'm expecting somewhere around 10 or so seconds here. No, maybe more than that. 13. Oh, this seems like a long one, so maybe Elsom did have some more problems out there. Looks like Jeff Gardner is also in. Yeah, this is definitely not a standard stop. Elsom about 20 seconds from beginning to end, unless he forgot to uncheck the tire box. Oh, yeah. Something's happened to Casey McDonald. McDonald was spun on the outside of turn 11. He's able to get going, but Main is there.
Yeah, and Main had actually lost a bit of time on that lap, so this is the most unlikely lap for him to actually catch Casey McDonald, and he pushed backs away. He didn't get overexcited there, and that's a sign of a driver with his head on his shoulders, because he didn't immediately go for the move when it was suddenly available to him unexpectedly. McDonald here just through the middle of the corner just loses the rear end, and he just has to wait a moment for that lap car to go past as well, who would have been very much caught off guard by that. McDonald's only just able to get back going in time to keep second.
This is going to make it quite a tight race, because Main is a little bit quicker from what we've seen, but it's going to be harder to try and pass a car that is so close on pace. Although the lap traffic in front of them might help. That's Ron Evans, who still owes us a pit stop. He could choose to dip out if he wants to be nice to them, as we take a look at the number 764. Doesn't look like there's any damage on the car, thankfully.
No. Looks like that's been gotten away with at least. But when you're Casey McDonald in this situation, you've been being caught, whatever the gap was and however much he was being caught at the time, the fact that it is nose to tail now, it's going to be a lot of pressure for you. So he's got to just get back on the track here and start running his laps again, making it difficult for Main to overtake. Because Jim Walsh has his second bit of trouble in the last couple of moments, and that unfortunately is with somebody else, as he was trying to make a move at the hairpin.
I would not be shocked if that wound up eliciting a penalty, because that was a bit far back coming towards that apex. We'll see if the stewards agree on that one. And so this is what happened with Evans. You may have noticed that he was suddenly not in front of those two cars. He spun while we were getting that sort of rear shot of Casey McDonald. So kind of exited stage left with us looking the other way. And in the meantime, McDonald actually responding pretty well to this. Main's not exactly breathing down his neck right now.
Yeah, I think, it's difficult to overtake, and we have seen quite a lot of movement actually further down the field. It's been fairly standard up front, where the guys who are quite evenly matched on speed are proving to be quite evenly matched when they fight each other as well. And I expect McDonald and Main to be showing this as well, although I do think Main will overtake eventually. That's the spin again. That's what Ron Evans brought all that gravel onto the circuit, and indeed did hit the wall quite hard actually through the corkscrew, which is finally seeing a bit of action after a clean start to the race, at least, or a quiet start as far as that corner's concerned.
Yeah, Evans decided to come down and pit after that one. Let's not forget they also have a spare car waiting if they get damaged, so that does help out in this situation. A number of these drivers probably utilizing that when they go and get their fuel. So McDonald maybe surprising us a little bit, doing a great job after an initial mistake. And Jeremy Main, who has looked quicker, just can't seem to get near enough to start laying on the pressure he would like to. Torrigiani, who's also had an eventful race up to this stage, discovers that while it is banked, there is not infinite grip at turn 10.
And that's proven to be a bit of a difficult corner in the last few moments as well, actually. That penultimate turn. And some of the spins, I've got to say, look like they're struggling with warm tyres, but warm as in hot tyres. But there's a spin right in front here, which is probably completely unrelated. That's a lapped car right in front of the battle for 6th, just losing it on traction. I guess again goes back to my point really about hot tyres and the fact that it sometimes looks like that. But you know, it's only 70 degrees at the moment on the circuit. That's not warm really by this part of the world standards. Brian Stern now goes for a spin, I think. And Andrew Long goes for a spin. Stern gets through. Long tries to win the place back again and doesn't.
Nope, he's going to have to fight for that one. So it's not been a perfect day at this stage. But Brian Stern is there for the pickings if he wants that spot back. Let's take a look. And I wonder... Oh, so actually, no, it was... it looks like it was... Stern who had that initial error, and Long just had caught up to him. And now Long is passed, as Stern must have had another problem coming down to the final corner while we were watching that replay. So up to P6 now for Andrew Long, having trouble keeping track of where exactly he is.
Yeah, what a weird battle. Couldn't work out what was going on there at all through the corkscrew, to be honest. And Andrew Long is now through into 6th place ahead of Stern. Christopher Costis is not too far away either. I don't think he's the one immediately behind Stern there. Although he might be. He's in this group anyway, along with a lapped car, which is also here, by the way. Lapped car's only outside the top 18 now, so we're fast approaching the stage of the race now where half of the field are a lap down. And that will come at some point in this race, I'm sure of it. Wolf is also permanently on the left-hand side of our screens now because he's up to 14th position in his recovery drive, and he's only 4 seconds behind the battle for 10th.
He still owes us a pit stop to the end, though. I found it interesting that he did come and stop in pit lane. I guess I wonder if that automatic iRacing penalty is a stop and hold then, because it looks like it's roughly 30 seconds. He was stationary, so otherwise I wouldn't expect him to actually stop.
I think it must be a stop and hold of 30 seconds, because that's how long he was there for. In that case, I don't know why he didn't carry on for a few laps and then take a bit of fuel as well, because I'm pretty sure you can do that in iRacing before you serve your penalty and take on a bit of service as well. Although maybe I'm wrong and outdated on that, but yeah, it's... maybe it's not too much of a surprise. Whether you can take fuel or not, I'm still surprised he didn't try and do the full amount of laps before you can serve a penalty, because surely running in first with clean air would have been better than what he's been doing more recently.
Yeah, the only downside, though, is that he would have only had about 3, maybe 4 laps, I believe, before you're forced to serve that penalty, and maybe he just felt it was better to get out of the way. If anything, I'm more surprised that we have not seen him just come into pit lane on the earlier side of these pit stops, so they had fewer cars to try and overtake. This is going to be a veritable buffet in front of him. That's Sachs, Saharichuk, Kavanaugh, and Yurtsa all in front of him. By the way, Peter Yurtsa up 10 spots as we're going to go side by side just briefly, but Mike Sachs will hold off Saharichuk for now.
And that allows Paul Kavanagh to have a chance on the way at the top of the hill. Inside, very nice move. Oh, and there's a big one for Wolf. He's going to go in. Oh, he's going to stop in time. The gravel thankfully slowed him down, and the wall did as well. He might have even put himself in the wall. It's all happening here as Wolf toes back to pit lane. Saharichuk spins. Daniel Corbett will take a couple of places. And it is all happening on the way to the corkscrew as our championship leader has more trouble tonight.
Somehow we missed the memo that was the lap in the corner. Everybody decided to go insane for a brief moment. What in the world has happened up into the corkscrew there? We're going to get a look at William Wolf's incident. I'm really confused as to what caused this, unless maybe there was a miscommunication with this car he was attempting to pass. And yeah, almost looks like that is what happened.
Yeah, it looks like it. He went straight into the back of the driver in front and then put himself in the wall and towed back to pit lane, and that looks like it'll be that for him. Andrew Elsom also spun on the exit of the corkscrew. It is starting to see a little bit more drama as the race goes on after a quiet first 20 minutes. This is what happened to Zaharachuk, because I was so distracted happening with Wolf. Oh my goodness! The driver that Wolf hit went into Zaharachuk, who then, unsurprisingly, spun because he had that massive drop on the inside. The tarmac's bad enough, but the gravel there is an even more extreme drop.
It really is. And so that was a cascade effect, interestingly. So it all happened because of the little miscommunication that we saw coming up towards the corkscrew. And then finally, to top it off, Jim Walsh having a little half spin coming out of the final corner. So we get to the final third once again. Mike Sachs is able to run away a bit, and he brings Paul Cavanaugh with him. By the way, I don't know if we mentioned, William Wolf actually took, not only took a tow, but he has disconnected from the server. So that is a DNF from the 16.
Yeah, so he will still get points for a DNF, by the way. If you start the race, you will still get points, but depends where he's going to finish now. At the moment, you'd expect him to be 25th, and that's not much of a safety net, is it really? We always talk about the drop week being a safety net to a bad result, and Jepperson has absolutely got that, because, as you were saying earlier, third place being his drop round, that is effectively his safety net. He can lose a maximum of 50 points per day, but Wolf, by finishing all the way down there, could lose hundreds in one day, and at the moment, he's projected to lose 140 to Joshua Jepperson. He would lose his championship lead as well. Casey McDonald would gain 110 and be 30 points in front. The only saving grace for him at the moment is that Lee Binkley is down in 8th for not having as good of a day as he did 2 weeks ago when he took the win. And Will Wolf will at least be 3rd in the championship, but Jepperson would be far and away the leader.
It's going to be a lot harder for him to make up the ground on Jepperson if he continues his consistency. Before we get back to the racing, we want to give a brief mention about Princess Cruises, because they are the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 14, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 17 elegant ships, sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. Curious how aware Jepperson is of what's happening behind him with his rival that he's been fighting to catch. Patrizio, this time he keeps it from turning around, almost has a pit entry that was unintended for a brief moment before he carries on once again. But the other thing that we should mention is that Jepperson is now 17 seconds ahead of Casey McDonald. I mean, Josh is starting to look more like Will Wolf looked in those first 2 races.
Yeah, it's remarkable, isn't it? Wolf, especially in the first race, Wolf was absolutely dominant at Spa. I guess you could say the same for Watkins Glen. I must admit, after that round, I was sort of pondering what kind of season we're going to see here with Wolf so dominant. But this has been a remarkable comeback from Jepperson. The way he's taken to this class after moving up from the Challenge last season is just remarkable. And when you see a driver improving so quickly, that is a sign of a great driver as well. You just wonder what class he's going to be in next season. I've got no doubts now that it will be the club class that he'll be in next season. And who knows where he'll go in that class as well. It's been such a great first sport class season for him, and I don't think he's going to have many here.
A fantastic job. This is Robinson versus Walsh. Walsh looking down to the inside, coming into the braking of Andretti, much deeper on the binders into there, and he is going to sneak through with a nice move to gather him up to 20th position now. But it has been up and down for Jim Walsh, having had a few adventures out there today.
It certainly has, but move there up into the top 20 certainly shows a bit of speed, bit of car control that he's got under him at the moment. And so we'll see how much further he can go up the field for the next few. Of course, always in that or is also in that awkward situation of being a lap down now and having to look in his mirrors a little bit more often, because there'll be a lot of lap cars coming through. They're not necessarily near Jefferson, but it's the midfield lapping you, which could be taking some looking out for. And that's exactly the part of the field he is in, as Andrew Long comes in from the sort of top 10 to maybe kick things off really from the leaders. We really haven't seen very many stops yet.
No, Peter Yurtza and Ward Preston are the only two I'm seeing that look like standard stops at this stage. And Long, with his completed, looks like he'll be out roughly around 9th position here once he gets going. So not too shabby. And he's very much in clear air. There are no cars around him.
Not if he gets in front of Mike Sachs here, who's not that far behind, but he will just about squeak ahead. So 3 seconds or so. In fact, you can just see him in the background. That's a good place to find yourself, though. Just in this little bit of clean air for Andrew Long. That's a case of getting out there and getting on the pace as quickly as possible. But as we know, a little bit of higher fuel load compared to the lower fuel load of the guys who are still yet to stop. And that's, of course, why they do wait so long. As tactically uninteresting as it is to see everybody waiting quite this long, it does make sense.
I just noticed Jeremy Main's pit stop was 17 seconds, which is definitely too long. And again, that makes me wonder if he accidentally ticked the tires on and didn't manage to turn them off until they had already started changing one. So he is not likely to be in that 3rd spot once our pit stops cycle around.
I do wonder with Main, really, because 17 seconds to me seems like quite a short tyre change, actually. So,
well, it'd be only one of them.
That looks like a technical problem. He's gone straight on there, and I think he's not got any control over his car anymore, as he threw himself straight on off the road there. You've actually got quite a long escape road before you find the barrier, but that's neither here nor there. So Harachuk looks like he's going to be out this race with a technical fault by the looks of that.
Yeah, he not only threw himself off the track, but out of the world. He's showing his gray on mine, although we haven't got official confirmation that he has left the server. So that to me says that maybe there's some sort of internet connection issue involved in that. As we check back in with Kalbick here, this is in 4th position. It's about 30 seconds behind the leader, but also about 6 seconds. So let's see here. Do we go dead stick or do we have control? Now he's still got control, so I think he bailed because he couldn't see where the other cars were.
Yeah, or modesty turned off or something like that. It's one of those ones rather than losing control, as it were, but certainly not being able to see where he's going, which is quite important. Or indeed, as you say, see where everybody else is, which is also equally important. So unfortunately, that looks like it would be the end for him, which is a bit of a shame, and the retirements are starting to rack up a little bit now. It would be our 5th out of 28 starters, if indeed that turns out to be a retirement for Harachuk, which it looks like it would be. So over 1/6 of the field gone, approaching 20% of the field gone by attrition here tonight. Not too bad when you consider just how difficult this circuit is, I suppose, but it is still nevertheless quite high compared to what we normally see.
Yeah, I have to be honest, this is about what I would expect for a track like this. Even the pros have difficulty around here, as Corbett is in and has someone else behind him. That's our leader. Josh Jeppeson pits. And relatively early, unless this is right at the end of the pit window, we're just seeing everybody else manage to go 1 lap longer. Jeppeson hits his marks. He'll take his fuel. Let's see if he also gets a standard stop. And Casey McDonald continues on into the lead.
This is getting a bit long. 10.1, not too bad. You get the feeling McDonald might be able to do a shorter stop than that, but I think his lead was over 10 seconds, wasn't it, with Jeppeson? So he'd do very well to lose the lead from here. It would have to be a mistake. Can he get in front of Kalbick here? To just give him one less car to overtake here, and he can indeed with that shorter run through the pit exit. Very unusual pit exit as it is here, very difficult as well, but it was good enough through there from Jeppeson to keep 3rd position, and you'd imagine now he is the only one standing in his own way of winning this race.
Yeah, I mean, if it gives you any idea of how far ahead he was, he emerged in 3rd place. So, and that's with most of the cars behind him still needing to take a pit stop. That's just incredible. Usually you would expect him to fall much farther down the order, even at this late in the race. But McDonald, Francis, they still owe us a pit stop. We'll see how they emerge, if either can find any sort of advantage, as they're only apart by about 5 seconds themselves. Kalbick also owes us a pit stop. The one that you mentioned was behind Josh Jeppesen.
Oh, no.
As Mike Sachs, what was looking like a pretty good race, is unraveled with a huge hit out of 3.
I just cut to him there as he was having a battle with Paul Kavanagh and Brian Stern. That's quite a dangerous rejoin, but he gets away with it. And he must have rear end damage now as a result.
Yeah, you can see it there.
Yes, sort of hitting the wall like that. A lot of the drivers who just passed him, by the way, have already stopped, so they won't actually affect him too much. But he's just not quite given the room, I don't think, on the outside there to Stern, I think it is, who's on the outside of him, and ends up backing it into the wall.
That's a pretty hefty thwack, too. So we saw the damage on the left and rear of the car. Nick Francis, by the way, has finished his stop. There's Kalbick as well that we saw on screen. So that's his pit stop done. Now it's starting to kick off. I'm not too surprised. Like you said, not a very thirsty track, Ewan. So seems like they have been able to go pretty far.
Yep, they have. Not unsurprising. And this is a circuit where you're off throttle for quite a long time and you're not really burning very much fuel compared to some of the other circuits in the world. So I'm not totally surprised, to be honest. But it is still a factor of this race. Less than 10 minutes to go, and Casey McDonald's still leading. Therefore, surely a stop has got to be arriving very, very soon. Nobody is ever going to be able to make a full PCA race without stopping, I wouldn't have thought.
No, certainly not. You have to do a lot of fuel saving, too much to really make it an effective strategy. I'm glad we're showing Kalbick here. He is one of 2 drivers at this stage in the race that has 0 incidents. You want to guess who the other one is?
Well, I already know, so you can... I'm cheating.
Yeah, fair enough. It's Jeppesen, the driver who should get the lead back here soon, but McDonald carries on another lap, so he won't hand it over quite yet. It doesn't mean anything to lead a lap in this series. It doesn't offer any bonus points at all. Lee Binkley, though, last round's winner, is down in the pit lane from 6th on the field.
Yep, so he joins Christopher Costis in the lane. We'll see what the stop times are like for them. 8 seconds for Costis. Binkley, these are fairly long compared to what I'd expect. 7.4. I mean, they're all a little shorter than Jeppesen, but I imagine Jeppesen just put a little bit of insurance policy in there just in case he got it a little bit wrong. He put a couple of extra litres in there, maybe a couple of extra laps even, to get himself to the end, because there's no point risking running out of fuel going over the line, or indeed running out of fuel before the end of the race. That would be silly in the situation he's in. Brian Stern gets just in front of Costis, so even that incident with Sachs didn't hold Stern back from getting into 7th again.
Yeah, and I was trying to see. He was investigated for that incident, and no fault, no penalty. Interesting. So they're just going to call it hard racing, and like you said, Stern kind of gets away with that one. As I just saw, Casey McDonald is indeed in pit lane. So that's back to our regular leader, Josh Jeppesen, up at the front. The only thing he's got to worry about now is probably a little bit of lap traffic.
That's something he's had to worry about for about 40 minutes at this stage, and he'll be well used to it, but it is the only obstacle now. Or indeed a mistake from himself personally as well would be the end of it as well, but he's not showed any signs of making any this season, really. He's still the only driver to have finished on the podium on every occasion so far this season. That was confirmed by Wolff's finish in 10th at Indianapolis. He's now one of the few drivers to have been in the top 10 every time. Lee Binkley is one of the... Oh, no, trouble!
And the car in front of him had a problem. Corbett just about spun out, tried to save it, but unfortunately for him, Josh Jeppesen was there. He does punch him with the nose of the car, and we can see some damage, but he is driving on normally, so we can cross our fingers that the car is okay, and he does have a 12-second buffer, so he has some wiggle room.
He's got 5 laps to go, so as long as the damage isn't 2.5 seconds a lap bad, then he'll be fine. And as long as it's not a meatball either, but this is just a nightmare scenario. Here's Daniel Corbett, he turns in for turn, oh, he wallops the curb and he locks it up, trying to stop himself from spinning. So Jefferson not expecting that, runs straight into the back of him. He's lucky, Jefferson, that's not a meatball. I think he's lucky the damage is not really bad, because, as you say, that was the only thing standing in his way for winning this race, and it very nearly tripped him up at the very last.
And we have to remember that while the Porsches are rear engine, there are some bits up at the front that you need to worry about, as that's where the radiator is. So if you hit it hard enough, it can cause you some overheating problems. But like you said, there's not many laps left, so he's probably just as hopeful as everybody else that he can make it to the finish. At least his fans, I wouldn't say the other drivers are hopeful that he'll finish. As we watch the battle now between Stern and Costas, having emerged from the pit lane right next to one another and have not separated yet.
No, although Stern has got a few tenths of a gap bigger than when we last saw it, when Costas was on his way out. So it looks like Stern might be able to keep him at arm's length here and at a good distance. And just by the way, on the gaps inside the top 10, look at the whole gaps between 2nd and 10th here. Not a single interval bigger than 10 seconds at the moment. It's a very, very strong rest of the top 10 here. Jefferson the outlier, given he's leading by 11 seconds, but looks like that gap's going to dip below 10 because Jefferson's got a bit of damage here, and he's just going to be bringing it home now very safely and calmly. Some very, very small gaps all the way throughout the field, and that is an encouraging sign for the series that not just got really large gaps up and down the field.
So I was checking the lap times, 9/10 of a second faster for McDonald, but as you mentioned, not enough laps to catch up to Jefferson, and I'm with you. He's probably just kind of babying that car home from this stage. This is honestly one of our good battles here, closest battles that we've got near the end of the race. And you can tell Stern is aware that Costas is back there as he weaves the car quickly across the track to set up here for the final hairpin, doing everything he can to maximize these final laps and to keep the 719 from demoting him one more position at the very end.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that Stern is looking in his mirrors and so on and worrying about Costas, but I'm not entirely sure why. Seems to have the speed really to keep him at arm's length, and if he stopped looking in his mirrors so much and weaving around thinking so much about Costas, he might be able to get a little bit further in front and feel even more secure in this position. I think he'll have enough to finish 7th, to be honest, but weirdly, you make it harder for yourself by looking in the mirrors more and moving around like that. So he's just got to get his eyes forward and focus in here, and trust in himself that Costas doesn't have the speed to pass him here.
I agree. And right now, he's still got that track position. We'll see what it looks like in about 4 laps time. Maybe, well, less than that, really, as Ron Evans is just in front of them. That's another lapped car. Evans is actually going to go off track, just like we saw him ahead of another battle earlier on in this race, and is completely out of the way afterwards. So they carry on without him, but it has not changed in distance between Stern and Costas as they come around to complete another lap. Here's what happened to Evans.
The corkscrew. Mentioned earlier how you've just got to sort of straight line that, find the shortest way through, and by doing that you find to make the braking zone a bit easier, but it doesn't matter if you get too late on the brakes, then you're always going to end up in the gravel on the outside, and he comes to a stop to let a few more past, which is understandable given his situation in the race. As I mentioned earlier on, plenty of lap traffic here tonight as expected. Just 12 on the lead lap now. Mike Sachs and Peter Yerkes' battle is happening right in front of Jefferson, which I'm sure he's enjoying.
Exactly, and Yerkes will want this position. Now, I believe Mike Sachs may have taken his spare car, as I know we're still focusing on this battle over here for 7th, but I just want to update folks because Yerkes is up 11 spots. He'll be up 12 if he can manage to overtake the 599, and there we can see, and yeah, it does look like that car is back to pristine condition, so he must have taken the spare.
Yep. There's no way that was what would you say? Prepared? Jesus, prepared in any other way. So 11th for Saxon. And this will help him now to just keep this 11th place as well. The gaps ahead are very, very large, but keeping Peter Yerkser behind is good enough for Sax for the rest of the day. Yerkser, I think, is going to end the day as the biggest mover forward with 11 spots gained. Sax has gained 7 in his own right as well, so both of them have done a very good job of moving forward, and one last battle for them as well as they come towards the end of what will be their penultimate lap. Just behind them, Jeppesen will take the white flag.
Exactly. And yeah, I think both need to be pretty proud. Well, Mike Sachs did get into a little bit of trouble. As we saw, it was not his fault. And he's done a fairly good job trying to get a result today. Maybe could have been just a little bit more. But you look at it, it's about 28 seconds up to Hammond. So it may not have happened. It's hard to say, as racing is full of what ifs. Meanwhile, Francis has actually been caught by Maine as we've just taken the white flag, and it's 1 to go. So Maine has got there, and he's been on the edges of that podium spot for much of this race, but he's going to have to really hustle to get it in this final circuit.
Yeah, you'd have to say so. It would be I think a disappointment for Jeremy Maine as well, finishing in 4th place and not on the podium, because the speed he's had tonight would suggest a driver definitely on the podium, but he's just not been able to do that. The consistency has very much let him down. Nick Francis, a perfect show of consistency here, not worrying about the fact he didn't have the speed of some of those around him, like Casey McDonald or Jeremy Maine, but in the end he's going to beat one of them, and that is the key here as Jeppesen slows down wildly for somebody else having trouble through turn 6. You could understand why those scars are still there mentally and indeed on his car from those couple of moments ago, but other than that, it's been a flawless evening for him.
And I have to admit, he's done a great job managing this race now that he's gotten back up to speed after the incident. McDonald is only down to 10 seconds behind him, did not gain as much as maybe some might have feared. And out of the final corner, it's been a few rounds with podiums all over them, none of them on the top step, until today as Josh Jeppesen takes the win at Laguna Seca.
And he moves into the championship lead as well, don't forget. He will lead that over Casey McDonald, actually, who will be 110 points behind him. Joshua Jeppesen will be maybe a little bit closer than that, in fact. Will Wolf will be a little bit closer than that indeed. Casey McDonald goes over the line 2nd. Nick Francis just about survives in 3rd. Great drive from him, and again, great show of consistency against a driver who was faster but less consistent.
And he talked about his battle with Costas. Well, he's, with, wait, was it Costas? Who was he fighting with earlier? I thought he was battling with somebody, but he's all on his lonesome now.
Yeah, so my picture the break here up at the moment, so you might have to go and do it. I've still got the timing, but yeah, obviously Stern with Costas just before the finish.
That's who it was.
Yeah, a couple of moments ago, and they came over the line pretty much nose to tail there as well. Though Stern did beat Costas by 0.3 of a second, not too far behind that. Binkley just beat Hammond to the line as well, and that was the end of the top 10. All of whom were on the lead lap, and not many below that were on the lead lap. Only Mike Saxon 11th, the other to make it home.
Absolutely. So it was Josh Jeppesen finally getting that win and now taking over the points lead as Casey McDonald will finish in 2nd behind him. Nick Francis was P3, and you've got Jeremy Maine in 4th. Then it's John Calbeck in 5th, Andrew Long in 6th. Andrew up 10 positions and is our hard charger because something happened to Yerkes at the end. I think he may have run out of fuel, but we'll get to him in a second. It was Brian Stern who finished in 7th, Christopher Costas in 8th, and Lee Binkley in 9th. A pretty dramatically different result from where he finished last time. Kevin Hammond rounds out your top 10. Mike Sachs, last one on the lead lap in 11th, the leader with incredible pace, left very few cars on the same lap as he, as Lervold was 12th, Preston was 13th, and Kavanaugh P14. Kavanaugh mistakes and penalties costing him today. Daniel Corbett was 15th, and Andrew Elsom in 16th. And there you go. Peter Yerxa, one lap down. I don't believe he put enough fuel in and wound up losing all those positions that he gained. It was Jeffrey Gardner in 18th, Jim Walsh P19th, and Sheldon Zaharachuk getting up involved in an incident at the very end. Bruce Robinson 21st with Ron Evans in 22nd. Patrizio Torregiani, all kinds of adventures, 3 laps down in 23rd. Kent Locklear in 24th. From there, it's DNFs with Wolf, Hales, Williams, and Souza rounding out the field. That gives us a chance to chat with Josh Jeppesen, who I can imagine is probably pretty happy that it's finally happened. Josh, it looked like you had at least one major scare out there, but other than the moment with some contact, was it pretty easy for you up at the front?
Yeah, I was just taking it easy once I realized how far out I was. Yeah, that scared the heck out of me. I was following, I don't know who it was in front of me, but I saw the sparks under the sausage curb, and I knew he was in trouble, and I knew I was too. Like, if he would have cut left a little bit further, I probably wouldn't have hit him, but I was just trying to get past him.
So what did the car handle like after that incident? We were worried, that maybe the damage would affect things.
It seemed like it was a little busted. A lot slower.
Well, it wasn't too much slower because you still wound up 10 seconds ahead of Casey McDonald, so you managed it extremely well. We've been making a big deal out of you've finished on the podium every single race. Your worst is a 3rd place finish. And now, because of the DNF for Wolf, we believe you will be the points leader. I mean, what's your mindset now? How do you feel after finally getting that win?
I mean, Wolf is fast. I'll definitely still be competing with him for the rest of the. I mean, things can change. I mean, you can be at the top and you can have a couple bad races I've seen in other seasons. So I'm just gonna, try to drive clean and do my best.
Well, it sounds like a good approach to me. Congratulations on finally getting that win.
Hey, thanks a lot, Joe. I'd like to take a shout out to my wife and Bryce Rodriguez, my coach. Thank you.
Josh Jeppesen taking his first victory here in the sport class. And behind him, it was Casey McDonald finding himself in P2. Ewan has caught up with him.
Casey, welcome in. Good to have you with us, and congrats on your third podium in 3 appearances this season. You must be very pleased with that one. Didn't see too much of you, but it looked like the times you were battling with Jeremy Main, you were very much the one who was sort of, consistently running your own race, not really worrying about anybody else, whereas some of those around you were making a few mistakes. What was your approach to this race at the beginning?
That was completely my approach, was just make as few errors as possible. Started struggling against myself on turn 11 halfway through and let people back in, and then got back into it again and started just running smooth. But, some fast guys making errors has given me this ability, but I'll take it.
What are your chances this season overall? This is your 3rd podium in 3 appearances, as I say, but because of the drop rounds, you'll be moving up into 2nd place in the championship, only 50 points off the championship lead, which sounds like a lot, but in this series, that's only the gap from 1st to 3rd in one race. Is the championship something you're aiming for, or are you just picking up the results and seeing where it gets you?
Well, I'm as competitive as anybody, so I'll take the championship. I'm going to fight for it. We got some quick guys here, though, so when they quit making errors, it's going to be real tough, but I'm going to give it a shot.
Look forward to it. Casey, congratulations on another podium tonight, 2nd place this time round, of course, and thanks for chatting to us at the end as well.
Can I just quickly say thanks to Princess Cruz and Nikki Chan at Last 10th for getting me here.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. Thanks very much. Casey McDonald, 2nd place here tonight from Laguna Seca.
And lastly, that brings us to Nick Francis getting his first podium of the season. A pretty dramatic difference from 27th in the previous round. But what I'm wondering about, Nick, is were you starting to wonder how many times you're going to see Jeremy Main show up in your mirrors?
Jeremy's super fast. He's actually faster than me on a lap by lap basis, and so I felt lucky I was able to jump him during the pit stop.
Yeah, he obviously had that slow stop, caught up to you a couple times, and almost was up to you at the very end. Is this more the results that you were expecting in this series when you came in at last round? Because obviously, I'm sure the 27th was not desirable.
I think so. I've had some consistency issues this season, but I've never podiumed in a PCA race, so I'm just pumped.
Now, next time out, I believe we potentially have some weather over at Aragon. How has your experience been in the rain here on the sim?
I'll be ready for it. I just gotta keep being consistent and run my race.
I like it. Good man. Well, congratulations on a top 3. Go celebrate.
Thank you so much.
It's Nick Francis, your third place finisher, which is going to wrap us up. So a big thank you to everybody, of course, for tuning in, but we're not done yet. As we mentioned, Motorland Aragon is going to be our next race here for the sport class. That will take place on November 5th at 9 p.m. Eastern. But we've got one more here at Laguna Seca. That'll be tomorrow night, October 23rd. That'll be for the challenge class. Thank you to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing, as well as to our team tonight, Ramiro and Ewan. And again, thank you so much for watching. I'm Joe Peak. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.